Welcome to the channel. Love sci-fi? Subscribe, like, and share the journey. Commander Vextar stood frozen at his command station aboard the Imperial Dreadnought Sovereign's Wrath, his four eyes wide with disbelief. The massive view screen displayed something that should not exist. A sleek, angular vessel emerging from what appeared to be a tear in space itself. "Report!" he barked, his scaled hands gripping the console until his claws left marks in the metal. "Sir, the vessel just materialized," stammered his sensor officer, Lieutenant Colron. "No hyperspace signature, no warp distortion, no quantum tunnel residue. It simply appeared in the middle of the Nexus Fleet formation." The Nexus Fleet, 12 dreadnoughts and 37 cruisers of the Galactic Empire's most elite naval unit, had been conducting routine patrols in the Outer Rim when the impossible happened. The unknown ship had emerged directly between the flagship and its escort vessels, a position that should have been impossible to reach undetected. Visual analysis complete, sir, reported the tactical officer. The vessel is approximately 2 kilometers in length, composed of unknown materials. Hull configuration suggests advanced stealth capabilities, but, sir, there are no energy signatures matching any known species in our database. Vextar's throat sacs inflated with anxiety. In his 40 years of service to the Empire, he had never encountered a ship that didn't match the profiles of known civilizations. The galaxy was mapped, cataloged, and controlled. Every species was either part of the Empire or crushed beneath its heel. "Hail them," he ordered. Static filled the bridge before a voice responded, clear, confident, and speaking in perfect Imperial standard. "Imperial vessel, this is Captain James of the UES Defiance. You are blocking our passage through this system. Stand down and move your ships to a safe distance." The bridge fell silent. Vextar's secondary hearts began racing. The audacity was unprecedented. This unknown vessel, alone and outnumbered 50 to 1, was giving orders to an Imperial fleet. "Unknown vessel," Vextar replied, his voice carrying the authority of the Empire. "You have entered restricted Imperial space without authorization. Identify yourself and prepare to be boarded for inspection." A pause. Then laughter, actual laughter, echoed through the comm system. "Imperial space?" The human captain's voice carried an edge of amusement. "According to our charts, this system was uninhabited when we last surveyed it 300 years ago. When did you move in?" 300 years. The impossible claim hung in the air like a poison gas. No species in the known galaxy possessed technology allowing for such long-range exploration or the longevity to remember events from 3 centuries past. "Sir," whispered the communications officer, "we're detecting massive power buildups across their hull. Whatever they're powering up, it's beyond our ability to measure." Vextar studied the alien vessel more carefully. Its design was unlike anything in Imperial records, smooth, predatory lines that suggested speed and violence. Strange protrusions along its hull glowed with increasing intensity, and he could see what appeared to be weapon ports opening along its flanks. "Fleet Commander, to all vessels," he announced over the tactical channel. "Form defensive positions around the unknown craft. Prepare for possible hostile action." As the Imperial ships moved to surround the lone vessel, Captain James's voice returned, now stripped of all humor. "Commander, I strongly advise against any aggressive action. The Defiance is not alone out here, and humanity has learned much during our long journey. This system is now under human protection. You have 10 minutes to withdraw your forces beyond the asteroid belt, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The bridge erupted in shocked murmurs. War? Against the Empire? The idea was laughable, except for the growing energy readings emanating from the human ship. "Sir," the tactical officer reported, his voice tight with fear, "I'm detecting additional contacts. They're everywhere." The tactical display erupted into chaos as dozens of new contacts materialized throughout the system. They appeared, one by one, emerging from what Imperial sensors could only describe as dimensional tiers, points in space where reality seemed to fold in on itself before disgorging another human vessel. 43, 47, 52 new contacts and counting, Lieutenant Colron reported, his voice rising with each number. "Sir, they're surrounding us. How is this possible?" Commander Vextar watched in growing horror as the human fleet deployed with mechanical precision. Each ship was different. Some massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even Imperial flagships. Others sleek destroyers that moved with predatory grace. But all shared the same angular, aggressive design philosophy that spoke of a species bred for war. "Fleet status report," he demanded. "All Imperial vessels reporting ready, sir." However, the tactical officer paused, studying his readings. "Sir, the human ships are maintaining formation outside our weapons range, but they're positioning themselves at optimal firing angles. It's as if they know our capabilities better than we do." Captain James's voice filled the bridge again, calm and measured. "Commander Vextar, yes, we know your name and rank. Your 10 minutes are now 9. I suggest you use this time to contact your superiors. They'll want to know that humanity has returned to claim what was once ours." "Impossible," Vextar muttered. "There are no records of any human civilization. The galaxy has been mapped for millennia." "Communications officer," he called aloud, "establish a quantum link to Imperial High Command, Priority Alpha." As the connection established, Vextar found himself staring at the blue-skinned visage of Admiral Rixaval, Supreme Commander of the Outer Rim Fleets. "Admiral, we have encountered an unknown species claiming to be human. They possess technology beyond our current understanding and have deployed a significant fleet in the Kepler 442 system." Admiral Rixaval's expression shifted from annoyance to concern. "Human? Run a database search immediately. Cross-reference with all historical archives." The search took less than 30 seconds, an eternity in military communications. When the results appeared, Vextar felt his blood turn cold. "Sir," he whispered, "there are references, ancient references. Pre-Empire records mention a species called humans. They were explorers. The records indicate they left this galaxy approximately 3,000 years ago, claiming they would return when the galaxy was ready for them." The silence stretched between the two officers as the implications sank in. 3,000 years was before the Empire's founding, before the Great Wars of Unification, before any of the current galactic powers had risen to prominence. "Admiral," Vextar continued, "if these records are accurate, humanity explored this galaxy when our ancestors were still primitive tribal societies. They left when we were nothing, and now they've returned to find us ruling their former territory." On the tactical display, more human ships continued to arrive. The count had reached 87 vessels, and each one represented technology that Imperial scientists couldn't begin to understand. "Commander," Admiral Rixaval's voice carried the weight of command, "you are to maintain defensive positions and avoid any aggressive action. I'm dispatching the 2nd and 3rd fleets to reinforce your position. Under no circumstances are you to fire first." "Sir, with respect, they're giving us 7 minutes to withdraw from what they claim is their system. Then you have 7 minutes to learn everything you can about them. Record everything. We need to understand what we're dealing with." As the communication ended, Lieutenant Colran's voice cut through the tension. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human flagship. They're broadcasting to the entire Imperial fleet." "Put it through." Captain James's voice filled every Imperial vessel simultaneously. "Ships of the Galactic Empire, I am Captain David James of the United Earth, Space Force. 3,000 years ago, humanity left this galaxy to explore what lay beyond. We seeded countless worlds, established research stations, and left behind monitoring devices to watch the younger species develop. We hope to return to find friends and allies among the stars." A pause. In the background, Vextar could hear the subtle hum of advanced machinery. "Instead, we find an empire built on conquest and oppression. We've watched you crush dozens of species, strip worlds bare, and spread fear across stars that once knew peace. The galaxy we left as a garden has become a prison." The human captain's voice hardened. "We are not the species that left 3 millennia ago. We have grown, evolved, and learned. We have faced things in the dark between galaxies that would destroy your fleets without effort. We have become something more than what we were. Your empire ends here. Consider this your only warning." Imperial High Command erupted into chaos as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The humans hadn't just appeared in one system. They had materialized simultaneously in over 200 locations, each emergence carefully calculated to maximum strategic effect. Admiral Rixaval stood before the Grand Council, the Empire's ruling body of 12 species representatives, as holographic displays showed human fleets taking positions throughout Imperial space. Honored counselors, the Admiral began, his voice steady despite the unprecedented crisis. We face an enemy unlike any in our history. The humans possess technology that renders our most advanced systems obsolete. Their faster-than-light travel leaves no detectable signature. Their ships are constructed from materials our sensors cannot identify. And their tactical knowledge of our capabilities suggests they've been observing us for some time. Counselor Thexmore, representative of the militaristic Valdorian species, slammed his massive fist on the council table. Impossible. The Empire controls over 10,000 systems. No force could threaten our dominion. With respect, Counselor, Admiral Rixaval replied. Their fleet dispositions suggest otherwise. They've positioned themselves to simultaneously threaten our primary naval bases, major shipyards, and critical supply routes. If they attack, they could cripple our infrastructure within hours. The holographic displays shifted to show tactical analysis. Each human fleet was precisely positioned to maximize damage while minimizing their own exposure. It was strategic thinking on a scale that impressed even Imperial military minds. Grand Counselor Ventar, the ancient leader of the dominant Corvaxian species, spoke with the weight of centuries. Tell us of their demands. They have made no demands, honored counselor. They simply stated that our empire ends here and warned us to withdraw from systems they claim as originally theirs. Our xenoarchaeology teams have confirmed that many of these systems contain ancient ruins and artifacts that predate any known civilization. The revelation sent ripples of unease through the council chamber. The Empire's foundational myth claimed they were the first advanced civilization in the galaxy, that their manifest destiny was to rule over younger species. Sir, interrupted a communications officer, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast simultaneously to every Imperial world, every ship, every station. The humans they're addressing the entire Empire. Grand Counselor Ventar nodded grimly. Display it. The chamber's main screen activated, showing the bridge of a human vessel. The figure who appeared was unremarkable by most galactic standards, bipedal, average height, with the soft features common to species that had never needed to develop natural weapons. But his eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences beyond Imperial comprehension. Citizens of the Galactic Empire, the human began. I am Admiral Marcus Webb of the United Earth Space Force. Many of you have been told that humanity is a myth, a legend, or a newly discovered primitive species. All of these are lies. The human, Admiral gestured, and the display shifted to show ancient star charts, archaeological evidence, and technological artifacts. 3,000 years ago, humanity explored this galaxy. We established colonies, research stations, and monitoring posts. We studied the younger species, your ancestors, and watched as you developed language, tools, and eventually spaceflight. We were proud of your progress and looked forward to welcoming you as equals among the stars. The display changed again, showing recordings of early Imperial conquests, species being subjugated, worlds being stripped of resources, entire civilizations being erased. But when we departed to explore beyond this galaxy, we left behind automated systems to monitor your development. What we found upon our return was not the peaceful federation we had hoped for, but an empire built on oppression and genocide. Admiral Webb's expression hardened. The Empire has destroyed 47 species, enslaved hundreds more, and turned the galaxy into a prison. Worlds we once knew as gardens are now barren wastelands. Species we helped guide to sentience have been reduced to slave labor. This ends now. The transmission shifted to show massive human fleets moving through space, their numbers far exceeding what Imperial scouts had initially reported. We are not the humanity that left 3 millennia ago. We have faced the darkness between galaxies. We have fought wars against enemies that would drive your species to madness. We have evolved beyond your understanding, and we have returned to reclaim what was always ours. To the oppressed species of the Empire, your liberation begins today. To the Imperial leadership, you have 48 hours to begin withdrawing from all systems marked as human territory. To those who have committed atrocities in the Empire's name, we are coming for you. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Counselor Thexmore stood, his warrior's pride overriding caution. We cannot bow to these threats. The Empire has never retreated, never surrendered. We have fleets, armies, weapons capable of cracking planets. Admiral Rixval's response was quiet, but carried to every corner of the chamber. Counselor, our most advanced weapons are 3,000 years behind theirs. They've had millennia to prepare for this moment, while we've grown complacent in our dominance. This isn't a war we can win through conventional means. As if summoned by his words, alarms began blaring throughout the Imperial capital. Every sensor array, every deep space monitoring station, every early warning system activated simultaneously. The humans were moving. Captain David James stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching as Imperial ships struggled to maintain formation around his vessel. The alien commander, Vextar, according to intercepted communications, was clearly out of his depth, but James had to admire the being's composure under impossible circumstances. Captain, reported his tactical officer, Lieutenant Torres, Imperial reinforcements are jumping in system. Approximately 200 vessels, including what appears to be their newest Dreadnought class. James nodded calmly. Signal the fleet. Implement formation Delta 7. And Lieutenant? Sir? Make sure our new arrivals understand they're not welcome here. The human fleet's response was swift and precise. Ships that had been nearly invisible to Imperial sensors suddenly blazed with energy signatures as their true capabilities came online. The newcomers found themselves surrounded by vessels that had been waiting in positions calculated to provide maximum tactical advantage. On the Imperial flagship, Commander Vextar watched his reinforcements arrive only to find themselves in an even worse position than his original fleet. Sir, his communications officer reported, Admiral Korthak is requesting immediate conference. The holographic image of Admiral Korthak materialized, a battle-scarred veteran of the Empire's expansion wars, his carapace marked with the scars of a dozen conflicts. Commander Vextar, what is the tactical situation? Admiral, the humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our understanding. They've positioned their fleet to neutralize any aggressive action we might take, and they continue to reinforce their position with vessels appearing from, we're not sure where. How many ships are we facing? Over 300 confirmed contacts, sir. But Admiral, they're not attacking. They could have destroyed us at any point, but they're maintaining defensive positions. Admiral Korthak's expression shifted from aggression to confusion. Defensive? They're the invaders. Sir, with respect, they claim this system belonged to them originally, and our Xenoarchaeology Division has confirmed the presence of ancient ruins on the fourth planet that predate any known civilization. Before the Admiral could respond, Captain James's voice filled both Imperial flagships. Admiral Korthak, Commander Vextar, I believe it's time we spoke directly. I'm transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting point. One of the ancient monitoring stations my people left in this system 3,000 years ago. Come alone, both of you. It's time you learned the truth about this galaxy's history. The POI coordinates led to a massive structure hidden in the asteroid belt. A station that Imperial sensors had somehow never detected despite centuries of surveying the system. As the three ships approached, the station's lights activated, revealing architecture that was both ancient and impossibly advanced. This is impossible, Admiral Korthak whispered, as his ship's sensors finally registered the station's presence. How could we have missed something this large? Captain James answered over the communication channel. Because it was designed to remain hidden until humanity returned. The station has been observing and recording everything that's happened in this galaxy for 3 millennia. Every war, every conquest, every species the Empire has destroyed. It's all been documented. The meeting chamber within the station was vast, its walls lined with holographic displays showing the galaxy's history. Captain James waited alone, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied images of worlds as they had been millennia ago. Commander Vexitar and Admiral Korthak entered cautiously, their weapons systems powered down per the agreed terms. The chamber's atmosphere was perfectly suited to all three species, another demonstration of human technological superiority. Welcome, James said without turning around. You're looking at Kepler 4142 Prime as it was 3,000 years ago. A garden world, home to the Villani species, a peaceful, artistic people who had just discovered agriculture. The display shifted, showing the same world as a barren wasteland. This is what your empire did to them. The Villani were declared incompatible with imperial development and relocated to labor camps. They were extinct within 50 years. Admiral Korthax stepped forward aggressively. The Empire brings order to chaos. We unite primitive species under a common banner. You destroy them, James replied, finally turning to face the Imperial officers. In the past 3,000 years, your empire has systematically eliminated every species that showed potential for independent development. You've turned this galaxy into a monument to your own fears. The displays continued cycling through. Images, species after species being conquered, enslaved, or exterminated. Worlds stripped bare, cultures erased, entire civilizations reduced to footnotes in imperial records. We left this galaxy as explorers, James continued. We returned as judges, and the Empire has been found wanting. Commander Vextar found his voice. What do you want from us? Withdrawal from all systems that were originally human territory, cessation of all expansion activities, and most importantly, James's expression hardened. Reparations to the surviving species you've oppressed. Impossible, Admiral Korthax snarled. The Empire will never... His words were cut off as every display in the chamber showed the same image. Human fleets positioning themselves around every major imperial world simultaneously. Admiral, James said quietly, your empire's time is over. The only question now is whether it ends with negotiation or annihilation. The ancient monitoring station hummed with barely contained power as Captain James led the two Imperial officers deeper into its corridors. The walls themselves seemed alive with flowing patterns of light, displaying the accumulated knowledge of 3 millennia. This station, James explained as they walked, is one of 1,200 we left throughout the galaxy. Each one has been recording, analyzing, and reporting back to our deep space expeditionary fleets. We've watched your empire's rise, and we've documented every atrocity committed in its name. Admiral Korthax's military bearing couldn't hide his growing unease. You've been spying on us for 3,000 years? Observing, James corrected. We hoped you would evolve beyond your violent tendencies. Some species did. The Altarians developed a peaceful philosophy. The Centauri created beautiful art and music. But the dominant powers... He gestured to a display showing imperial expansion patterns. You consumed everything in your path. They entered a vast chamber filled with crystalline data cores, each one pulsing with stored information. Commander Vextar approached one of the displays, his 4 eyes widening as he read the contents. These are classified imperial records, he whispered. Military plans, resource allocation, even private communications between high command. How? Do you have access to this? Commander, James replied. Your empire's technology is based on principles we mastered millennia ago. Your quantum communications, your sensor arrays, your computer systems, they all utilize frequencies and protocols we established when your species were still discovering fire. The implications hit both imperial officers simultaneously. If humanity had been monitoring their communications for centuries, then every imperial strategy, every secret weapon, every defensive position was known to the human fleet. The Tarragon campaign, Admiral Korthax said slowly, naming one of the Empire's most celebrated victories. We surrounded their homeworld and forced their surrender in 3 days. It was considered a masterpiece of tactical planning. James nodded, grimly. We watched. The Tarragon people were pacifists. They had no weapons, no military, no concept of interstellar warfare. They surrendered immediately when your fleets arrived because they couldn't understand why anyone would want to harm them. The display showed the aftermath. Tarragon civilians being loaded onto transport ships, their cities being demolished to make way for imperial mining operations. They were relocated to suitable environments, Admiral Korthax said defensively. Standard imperial integration protocol. They were sent to mining colonies and systems with atmospheric compositions that were slowly poisonous to their physiology. James replied coldly. Within 2 generations, the Tarragon species was extinct. That wasn't integration, it was genocide with paperwork. Commander Vextar moved to another display, this one showing real-time positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. The scope was staggering. Over 10,000 vessels positioned with surgical precision to maximize strategic impact. How? Many ships do you have? He asked. Enough, James answered. But numbers aren't what should concern you. During our time beyond this galaxy, we encountered threats that make your empire look like children playing with toys. We've fought battles against entities that could remake matter at the quantum level, survived wars where the weapons used could collapse entire star systems. He gestured, and the chamber's displays showed images from humanity's exodus, vast, alien constructs, impossible geometries, and warfare conducted on scales that dwarfed anything in Imperial experience. We left this galaxy as explorers, and returned as veterans of conflicts you couldn't comprehend. The technology you're facing isn't just advanced, it's been tested against enemies that nearly destroyed us. Admiral Korthak struggled to maintain his composure. What do you want? Complete surrender? The dissolution of the Empire? We want justice, James replied. But more than that, we want this galaxy to heal. The species you've oppressed, the worlds you've damaged, the cultures you've destroyed, they deserve better than what the Empire has given them. A new voice interrupted from the chamber's speakers. Admiral Marcus Webb, broadcasting from the human flagship. Captain James, we're receiving communications from across the galaxy. The liberation fleets have begun their work. The displays shifted to show human forces moving throughout Imperial space. But rather than the expected scenes of battle and destruction, they showed something far more significant. Human ships arriving at worlds where oppressed species lived, broadcasting messages of freedom. This is Admiral Webb of the United Earth. Space Force, the transmission began. To all non-Imperial species currently under the Empire's control, your liberation begins now. We are here to help you reclaim your worlds, your cultures, and your futures. The age of oppression is over. Commander Vextar watched as the displays showed reactions from across the galaxy. Species that had been enslaved for generations emerging. From underground shelters, workers abandoning Imperial facilities, entire worlds rising up as human ships provided protection from Imperial retaliation. It's happening everywhere, he whispered. The Empire is collapsing. Not collapsing, James corrected. Being replaced. The question now is whether Imperial leadership will accept this new reality or force us to impose it through violence. Admiral Korthak's combative stance finally cracked. You're offering us a choice? We're offering you survival, James replied. The Empire as you know it is finished, but the species that comprised it, including yours, can have a future in the galaxy we're building. A future based on cooperation, rather than conquest, on growth rather than consumption. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of ancient machinery. Both Imperial officers stood surrounded by the weight of their civilization's crimes, faced with a power that made their military might irrelevant. What happens to us? Commander Vextar asked quietly. James studied both officers for a long moment. That depends on your choices in the coming days. Some Imperial leaders will fight to the end, and they'll be treated as the war criminals they are. Others will accept reality and help us build something better. And our peoples? They'll be free to determine their own futures, just like every other species in this galaxy. The Imperial capital world of Korvax Prime had never seen such chaos. As news of humanity's return spread throughout the Empire, entire sectors began declaring independence, while others pledged loyalty to the mysterious human forces that had appeared from nowhere. Grand Counselor Ventar stood in the emergency session chamber, watching as the holographic map of the Empire shifted in real time. Green sectors indicated continued Imperial control. Red showed areas where human forces had established dominance, and an alarming amount of yellow indicated regions in open revolt. Status report, he commanded, his ancient voice carrying the weight of centuries of rule. General Kixmar, Supreme Commander of Imperial Ground Forces, stepped forward. Honored Counselor, we've lost contact with over 60% of our outlying systems. Human forces have established blockades around all major worlds, but they're not attacking Imperial installations directly. Instead, they're liberating the subjugated populations. The word liberating hung in the air like a curse. For millennia, the Empire had maintained control through a careful balance of overwhelming force and strategic oppression. The humans had shattered that balance in a matter of hours. What of our fleet strengths? Ventar asked. Admiral Rixaval, his blue skin pale with stress, consulted his tactical displays. We've mobilized every available vessel, Over 8,000. Ships across 12 battle groups. But sir, the humans aren't engaging us directly. They appear and disappear at will, always maintaining superior positioning. As if summoned by his words, the chamber's communication system activated. Admiral Marcus Webb's image appeared, broadcasting from the bridge of what Imperial intelligence had identified as the human flagship, a vessel so massive it dwarfed even the Empire's largest dreadnoughts. Grand Counselor Ventar, Webb began, his tone respectful but firm. I believe it's time we spoke directly. The ancient Corvaxian leader straightened, drawing upon millennia of diplomatic experience. Admiral Webb, you've brought considerable chaos to our galaxy. I've brought justice, Webb corrected. Your empire has had 3,000 years to evolve beyond its violent origins. Instead, it has become a cancer, consuming everything in its path. That ends now. You speak of justice, Ventar replied, but you ignore the order we've brought to this galaxy. Before the Empire, these systems were chaotic, primitive, constantly at war with each other. Webb's expression remained unchanged. Order built on oppression isn't order, it's tyranny, and the primitive species you've subjugated had their own paths to development. You stole their futures to build your empire. The Grand Counselor gestured, and the chamber's displays showed imperial achievements, vast cities, technological marvels, trade networks spanning thousands of systems. Look at what we've built. The Empire has brought prosperity, advancement, unity to countless worlds. Built with slave labor, Webb responded coldly. Powered by strip mining operations that have left dozens of worlds uninhabitable. Maintained through the systematic suppression of any species that might challenge imperial dominance. General Kixmar stepped forward aggressively. You humans speak of crimes, but what of your own actions? You've destabilized an entire galactic civilization. We've exposed its true nature, Webb replied. The stability you claim was built on fear. Remove that fear, and your empire collapses in hours. That's not strength. It's weakness disguised as authority. As they spoke, reports continued flooding into the chamber. The Alderani sector had declared independence and was welcoming human protection. The mining colonies of the Outer Rim had risen in revolt, driving out imperial overseers. Even some of the Empire's member species were questioning their allegiance. What are your terms? Ventar asked finally. Complete withdrawal from all systems that were not originally part of your home territory, Webb stated. Immediate cessation of all expansionist activities. Reparations to the species you've oppressed, and trials for those responsible for genocide and war crimes. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Counselor Thexmore slammed his fist on the table. Unacceptable. The Empire will never. The Empire no longer has a choice, Webb interrupted. As we speak, human fleets are positioning themselves around every Imperial core world. You have superior numbers, but we have superior everything else. This can end peacefully, or it can end with the complete annihilation of your military forces. Your choice. Grand Counselor Ventar raised a hand for silence. Admiral Webb, you claim to represent justice. But what you're proposing would mean the end of everything we've built over 3 millennia. Millions of Imperial citizens depend on the current system for their survival. Then we'll help them build something better, Webb replied. The species of this galaxy don't need the Empire to survive. They need freedom from it. We're not here to destroy civilizations. We're here to free them from their chains. The communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. Admiral Rixaval accepted it, and his expression shifted to shock. Sir, he reported, we're receiving surrenders from across the galaxy. The Third Fleet has laid down arms. The mining colonies are welcoming human administrators. Even some of our core worlds are requesting human protection from Imperial retaliation. The weight of the revelation settled over the chamber. The Empire wasn't being conquered. It was being abandoned by its own subjects. You have 24 hours, Webb announced. After that, we'll consider any Imperial military forces as hostile combatants. End this now, while you still have the option to do so with dignity. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Finally, Grand Counselor Venatar spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of history. How did we become the villains in our own story? 6 months after the first human ships appeared in Imperial space, The galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The ancient monitoring station where Captain James had first met the Imperial officers now served as the provisional capital for the Galactic Liberation Council, a temporary governing body overseeing the transition from Empire to Federation. Commander Vextar, now bearing the title of Transition Coordinator, stood before a massive display showing the current state of galactic civilization. Where once the Empire's rigid boundaries had divided space into controlled sectors, now hundreds of independent systems were forming voluntary alliances based on shared interests and mutual respect. Status report, he called to his mixed human-alien. Staff. Lieutenant Torres, on loan from the human fleet, consulted her displays. The Alderani Federation has officially established diplomatic relations with 12 neighboring systems. The Centauri Collective is reporting increased cultural exchange with the former Imperial core worlds. And the Terran refugee settlements are integrating successfully with local populations. The transformation hadn't been without challenges. Some Imperial diehards had attempted to maintain resistance from hidden bases, leading to brief but decisive conflicts with human forces. The humans' technological superiority had made these encounters tragically one-sided, but their restraint in victory had impressed even former Imperial loyalists. "What about the war crimes tribunals?" Vexistar asked. "Proceeding on schedule," replied Dr. Kim, the human legal advisor overseeing the justice process. "We've established courts on 15 worlds, with mixed human-alien judicial panels. The focus remains on truth and reconciliation rather than revenge. It was a principle that had initially confused many former Imperial citizens. The humans possessed the power to simply execute every Imperial leader who had participated in genocidal campaigns, but instead, they insisted on careful legal proceedings that gave defendants the opportunity to acknowledge their crimes and make amends." Admiral Marcus Webb entered the chamber, his presence still commanding respect from beings who had once considered him an enemy. "Coordinator Vextar, I have news from the deep space expeditions." Vextar turned curious. The humans had been surprisingly secretive about their activities beyond the galactic rim. "We've made contact with the outbound fleet, the portion of humanity that continued exploring beyond this galaxy while we returned. They've been monitoring our progress and have decided to establish permanent diplomatic missions throughout the galaxy." The implications were staggering. If the human forces they'd encountered were only a fraction of humanity's true strength, then the species possessed capabilities that dwarfed anything previously imagined. "How many of you are there?" Vextar asked quietly. Webb smiled. "Enough to ensure this galaxy never again falls under the control of a single oppressive force, but not so many that we need to dominate it ourselves. We've learned the dangers of unchecked power during our time in the void." A chime indicated an incoming priority transmission. The chamber's main display activated, showing Captain James broadcasting from the bridge of the Defiance, which was currently stationed near the former Imperial capital. "All stations, this is Captain James. We're beginning the final phase of the transition. As of today, all human military forces will begin withdrawing to designated sectors. Peacekeeping operations will be transferred to the new Galactic Security Force, staffed by volunteers from all member species." Vextar felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The human withdrawal had been promised from the beginning, but many former Imperial citizens had grown dependent on human protection from the chaos of transition. "The monitoring stations throughout the galaxy will remain active," James continued, "but they will now serve as centers for scientific research and cultural exchange rather than surveillance posts. Any species wishing to access the historical records we've maintained will be welcome to do so." The broadcast shifted to show scenes from across the galaxy. Former slave worlds where beings were rebuilding their ancestral cultures, research stations where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that would have been impossible under Imperial rule, and trading posts where species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to coexist peacefully. "To those who served the Empire," James continued, "remember that you were also victims of its system. The galaxy we're building has room for redemption, for growth, for new beginnings. To those who suffered under Imperial rule, know that your pain has not been forgotten and your voices will be heard in the new order we're creating together." As the transmission ended, Vextar found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. 6 months ago, he had been a loyal Imperial commander, certain of his civilization's righteousness. Now he stood as a coordinator, in humanity's new galactic order, working to heal wounds that his people had inflicted. Coordinator, Dr. Kim approached with a datapad. We've received a request from the Vellani Memorial Committee. They want to establish a remembrance site on their former homeworld. Vextar's throat sacs tightened with emotion. The Vellani, the peaceful species whose destruction he had witnessed in the monitoring station's historical records, had been extinct for over 2 millennia, but their descendants, scattered across the galaxy as refugees and laborers, had survived. Approved, he said quietly, and authorize full terraforming support to restore the world to its original condition. Lieutenant Torres looked up from her station. Sir, we're also receiving reports of spontaneous celebrations on over 300 worlds. It appears that today has been declared Liberation Day by popular consensus. Through the station's massive viewports, Vexitar could see the stars of the galaxy, the same stars that had once been divided by imperial boundaries, now free to be explored by any species with the curiosity and courage to reach for them. Admiral, Webb approached him, extending a datapad. Your new assignment, if you're willing to accept it. Vextar read the document with growing amazement. Ambassador to the Centauri Collective? But I'm a former Imperial officer. Why would they trust me? Because you've earned that trust, Webb replied. The Centauri specifically requested you. They said that anyone who could change as much as you have, who could acknowledge past mistakes and work to correct them, was exactly the kind of being they wanted representing the new galactic order. As Vextar considered the offer, a new transmission arrived, this one from the Centauri homeworld itself. A graceful, ethereal being appeared on the display, her crystalline features reflecting the light of her world's twin suns. Coordinator Vextar, she began. I am Lyra, speaker for the Centauri Collective. We have watched your work with the Liberation Council and been impressed by your dedication to justice and reconciliation. Would you honor us by serving as the first ambassador between our peoples? Vexitar looked around the chamber, at the humans and aliens working together, at the displays showing a galaxy healing from millennia of oppression, at the future spreading out before them like an uncharted stellar map. Speaker Lyra, he replied. It would be my honor to serve in whatever capacity best helps our species learn to understand each other. As the transmission ended, Admiral Webb placed a hand on Vextar's shoulder. The Empire is dead, but the species that comprised it live on. You're proof that even the darkest past can lead to a brighter future. Outside the station's viewports, human ships were already beginning their withdrawal to the outer systems, leaving behind them a galaxy transformed. The age of the Empire was over. The age of freedom had begun. And in the vast darkness between the stars, other human fleets continued their eternal journey, carrying the message of liberation to galaxies yet unknown, ensuring that no corner of the universe would ever again suffer under the weight of unchecked tyranny. The humans had returned not as conquerors, but as liberators, and in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy of something it had almost forgotten in 3 millennia of oppression. That the greatest strength was not the power to dominate, but the wisdom to set others free. The Empire was dead. Long live the Federation of Free Worlds. The end.